Hi there, I'm Deborah Drays-Legg, founder of Eponicity, and welcome to this presentation on how to use my Integration, Align, and Evolve supportive coaching cards. This presentation reviews how to use the 3 fundamental questions algorithm. So let's get started. All right, so here we go. These are the card categories. There's Integrate cards, which contain the algorithms of the coaching sequences. There's 2. And Motion cards, Hermetic principle cards, the philosophy behind some of the elements of our humanity, and duality cards, looking at the polarities that we live in, archetype cards, which help put it into a human theme, what's happening, and then the herd dynamic cards, which are the energy behind what's happening. There's another presentation that goes over each of these categories in depth, and it's really important that you would go through that presentation before starting one of the algorithms so you're familiar with the cards, and also read all of the cards before you start this. It will save a lot of time and a lot less confusion. So I developed these cards from the heart of my practice, and they help to create a common language for between the practitioner and their clients, and also start to, I think, help us become familiar with ourselves as a human and what it means to process our life's challenges into wisdom. And so, like I said, these cards encapsulate the most valuable tools that I use with clients. They're designed to guide us toward realizing the energy and the light that innately exists within us. We have the capacity to heal ourselves, and with our own power, under our own power, that medicine comes within us. They provide a coaching algorithm that turn challenges into wisdom and potential. And they're, like I said, created to encourage our own self-introspection. So we start here with the algorithm for the 3 fundamental questions. This is on card 1 or card A, and it says start here, so that makes it easy. There are 2 sets of algorithm options listed on the card, and we, like I said, we're going to be doing the 3 fundamental questions. So to begin, find a quiet, comfortable place where you'll not be interrupted, and you'll need a journal to take notes. And then place the selected algorithm in front of you, and then place the other card categories below. And then you just follow the prompts on the cards as you move through the process. And if you feel like you begin to become overwhelmed, please stop, take your time, maybe take a few steps back. And it's normal for these uncomfortable feelings to show up. But if it becomes too much, be sure to reach out to a professional or a trusted friend to kind of talk through what's coming up for you. One thing to remember, though, is this feeling of uncomfortableness is part of taking a look at something through a different way. You'll find yourself deconstructing this topic, so new insights can evolve and start to realign in the topic for you, so you can see it through a new perspective. And just like a lobster, when a lobster starts to feel uncomfortable in his old shell, that's a sign for him that it's time to shed the old shell and go someplace safe and to grow a new shell and then be a little bit bigger lobster. And that's what happens to us too. This is how your spread should look in front of you. You will have the algorithm for the 3 fundamental questions, which are in numbers. So we have 2, because 1 was the start here card. We don't really need that one. And so we have 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now 5 we also use for the other algorithm. And then 6, 7, and 8, and H, an integrate card, is also used for the other algorithm. As you lay them out in front of you, you might be reading things as you move along, but you don't really need to look ahead because you're going to be working through each card one at a time as you're moving through the process. And then you have the different category cards below there and available for you to utilize as you're prompted to on the cards. Well, here we go. The three fundamental questions. In these questions, we discover the essence of circumstances, identify emerging potential, and then partner with that potential to discover a clear pathway forward. We shift from goal-oriented objectives into potential-oriented purpose. The first question, this is where the opportunity lies, and where we do this shifting from goal orientation into exploring potential. We embrace limitless outcomes by focusing on what could emerge rather than what you should do. And the second question is, who is this asking me to be? And who is this asking me to be in this present moment? And it helps us begin to uncover the version of ourselves that is actually in this potential calling you forth. And recognize this as an opportunity to enter a new phase of personal growth and a new phase of presence. And I think it is. Here's the chick hatching out of the shell, but it's also the new lobster, the new size lobster coming out. And the last question is, that brings it all together, it finally brings us to the action. What is this asking me to do? And we translate this new awareness into actionable steps and set waypoints to guide the journey toward your unfolding potential. Question 1, what wants to happen? So this is where the opportunity lies. It's common to get stuck in static goals or mired in thoughts of what you think you should do, when really what wants to happen for you may go way beyond that. So get out your journal and write down 3 topics without too much effort that are issues that you would like to explore. And write them down, 1, 2, 3. And then close your eyes, take a few deep breaths to clear your head just a bit. And then when you open your eyes, which one of those 3 topics is standing out to you? That's the one that's asking to happen. Take note of that and then move on. Now I'll be going along in the process with you, and the next slide we will talk about what wants to happen for me right now. My example for the 3 fundamental questions, what wants to happen? Well, I have this conundrum that's going around in my head. Where should I put the bulk of my energy in the next 6 months? And one of the things that I have swimming around in my head is expanding my death doula practice. And I had worked in hospice for a while, and that's really a big need. A death doula helps people prepare for death in a more contemplative, thoughtful way. Instead of fighting with death coming on, it's partnering with death. I feel pretty passionate about that. And then the other part of that is I'm working on a new book that supports the practice. So those are the things that were at the forefront of my mind. But then the third topic that I was intuitively hearing was just enjoying some time on my farm with my horses and taking a few things off my own bucket list. And through the contemplative exercise, I realized that the third option was what wants to happen. Enjoying time at my farm in Virginia and ticking something off my bucket list. All right, so now we know what wants to happen, and we move to the second question, who is this asking me to be? And being in this moment, listening to your 3 intelligences, which is our brain and our heart and our belly, it allows us to tap into intuitive places within ourselves that can bring information about this topic and who it's asking us to be. So you'll have your journal, and this is where you're going to write the question in your journal and have the emotion cards at hand, because often emotions come up as almost like preliminary emotions, I guess I would say, that are asking to be noticed and for us to get the message behind the emotion, because often these emotions can be what's blocking us from stepping into what wants to happen. And I'd like to explain a little bit more about the 3 intelligences and how we can use the information that's held there to help us access the wisdom that we're seeking. And this is just a little pause to reinforce that what wants to happen is also seeking you. The brain, heart, and gut are often referred to as our three intelligences. They interact through a complex network of neural, hormonal, and biochemical pathways, each playing a vital role in shaping how we think, feel, and react. The brain processes and interprets information, sending and receiving signals to and from the heart and the gut to manage cognitive processing. As you tap into the intelligence of your brain, don't edit, let it ramble, let it do what it does. Take notes as you listen to the intelligence of your brain. Now move on to the heart. The heart communicates with the brain and the gut via the vagus nerve and has its own intrinsic nervous system. It sends emotional and energetic signals influencing mood, intuition, and decision making. Heart coherence, which is a state of balance between the heart and the brain, can promote emotional regulation and cognitive clarity. Tapping into your heart intelligence, quiet the brain. Let your heart do the talking now. If your brain wants to get in the way, make a little note under the brain again, but go back to just sensing with your heart what your heart wants to tell you. And then move on to the belly or the gut. It's also known as the second brain. The gut's enteric nervous system actually sends information to the brain through the vagus nerve and produces neurotransmitters like serotonin, impacting mood and mental health. The gut also influences our intuitive responses and decision making, and we've heard that before. We have a gut feeling about this, and that's that whole nervous system that is in your belly. So intentionally quiet your brain, quiet your heart, and listen and feel and sense only with your belly. It's very common here for emotions to come up, and then use the emotion cards to support the process. As you gather information, you might feel like you need to move back to the brain. Maybe the brain now has heard something the belly wanted to say, and so you can go back to the brain, take some more input from the brain, or go back to your heart. And this fluid communication is between your three intelligences really will help support the process. These three systems communicate constantly, creating a feedback loop that helps regulate our emotion, physical health, and overall well-being. Their interaction influences how we sense, feel, and navigate the world. So learning to communicate with them and to listen and understand where this data is coming from can help to move forward in a sense of what you're being asked to be. So now let's move on to the example. My three intelligences. As you remember, what wants to happen is enjoying some time and ticking off a bucket list item. So I tapped into my brain and I discovered my brain was telling me at your age, it's perfectly normal to step back a bit and enjoy your time on Earth while you have your health. But the big thing that was coming through was don't get lazy, right? Anyway, so that was what my brain kept having these feelers about that. Am I being lazy and feeling guilty and things like that, I think were coming through. And then I tapped into my heart, and my heart told me, this is a big, wonderful world. Let's go. Too much working is not good for a 60-something. Seeing the world with newfound wisdom and perspective in contemplation will only add to your practice. And then my belly told me this feels like a way to solidify my being, to finally settle into me, who I am and why I am. And that felt kind of surprising information actually for me coming from my belly. Then the emotion that came up for me was contentment. And contentment is, the overall meaning is all is well, and it feels like peace. The message behind contentment, satisfaction, fulfillment, and enjoyment of your life, or some aspects of it, or even a situation. Another message could be coming to terms with a situation that you have no control over. I think maybe it's aging, I imagine. And I ask myself the question, what situations have I accepted? What did I accomplish or finish? What qualities or gifts have I recognized in myself or others? And so all of the emotions have an intensification if we don't listen to them, or an obstruction. And obstructions to contentment can include inability to feel satisfied or proud, or unwilling to accept a challenge, to risk failure. So those were two obstructions that I noticed, and may eventually come back to help me to understand and process what wants to happen in a deeper way. So for me then, I go back to the who is this asking me to be card, and my three intelligences summary was, the brain was like, okay, but don't get lazy. It's okay. This what wants to happen, enjoying some time off and ticking off a bucket list item. My heart was to gain a new perspective. This would allow me to gain new perspective. And my belly said, it's just time to be me, which I felt like in a teenager again, in a way. It was very interesting. And the emotion that surfaced was contentment. So pulling all of this information together, who's this asking me to be? Comfortable in this time of my life, processing my life so far in contented and peaceful, contentedly and peaceful. And then I kind of distilled it down even further into peace and contentment. Now it's time to review. What wants to happen? Enjoying time and ticking off a bucket list item. Who is this asking me to be? Peacefully content. Now we can move on to, what is this asking me to do? Moving on to the last of the three fundamental questions. What is this asking me to do? So this involves three stages: processing, shifting, and aligning. This takes us deeper into the process of discovery and self-awareness. Let's review the card categories that will guide us through this stage. And again, being familiar with the cards will be helpful. There will likely be several cards in each category that will fit. Pull the cards that resonate, even if, and especially if, they feel uncomfortable. When you look at it, you may be like, oh, not that one, but I'll take a look at it. It may be that one. We have the emotion cards. This is part of the process. Emotions transcend species and cultures, and they act as a universal language of communication. And then moving into shift, we have an archetype cards. An archetype is a potent symbol or theme that embodies a core aspect of the human experience. Another part of our shift is the herd dynamic, which is the energy around that's fueling and supporting the situation or the topic. This is nature's model of a balanced energy system, where seamlessly flowing between different energy states is the most effective and efficient means and way of being. The next stage of doing is aligning, and the duality cards represent opposing forces or concepts that exist in balance, highlighting the complementary nature of contrast within the human experience. And next are the Hermetic principles. This is the kind of the culmination of aligning all of these concepts together. The principles provide a framework for understanding reality, consciousness, and the deep interconnectedness of everything in the universe. So we begin by process, and this is using the emotion cards. First, I will look at the emotions related to this what wants to happen. And this is the process part of what this is asking me to do question. I found I discovered hesitation surrounding this part of my processing, as guilt was the first thing that came in to my field of view. I didn't want to pick the guilt card. Why would I feel guilty? I feel guilty for picking the guilt card. Anyway, and I think it maybe most likely comes from my nursing background. Nurses always put other people first, and it's okay to put myself first. I had to kind of wrap my head around that, and I needed to acknowledge that. And the second emotion that came up for me was pride. And this was funny because I always think of people that are prideful as being self-indulgent. But there is a place for pride. Even if we never let up on ourselves, we're actually telling ourselves that we're never good enough. And for me, that seems to go hand in hand with guilt. And I can trace that back, I think, to my childhood, I suppose. I would hear, "Oh, that's a good job, but don't be a slacker next time. Keep your eye on the prize that's up ahead." And I think in order for me to step into this contentment, I needed to really lighten up on myself and be proud of what I have accomplished so far in my life. And that will allow contentment to enter into my life. And that kind of goes with that indication of obstruction that I talked about earlier, was inability to feel satisfied or proud. And and so in order for me to allow peace and contentment into my life, I have to acknowledge and be proud of what I've accomplished so far. Now, in the process of discovering what this is asking me to do, we'll take a look at shift. And in shift, we're looking at the archetype, which is the theme behind the topic. And in shift, we also look at the energy that's driving the topic. And that will be contemplated through looking at the herd dynamic cards. Now, looking at the theme or the story around this topic, I can place it into an archetypal framework. And the first archetype that came up for me was the balancer. And the balancer is a guardian of equilibrium, wisdom, and pragmatic decision making, rooted in the understanding that manifesting or maintaining balance is essential for the well-being of the whole. And what I drew from this is I will bring my life into balance by focusing on what is important to me now, and then releasing what no longer serves me. And it comes down to making these decisions. It's like letting go of my old shell to allow growth, like the lobster again. The next archetype is the seer. And the seer is a harbinger of insight, intuition, and unconditional, unbiased perception. Information is gathered from multiple levels of awareness. And I realize I'll be able to contemplate my life thus far during this time off without judging myself, my actions, or events as good or bad, and look back with recognition of how I've been supported by the universe. And these two archetypal models will then enable me to step into this ambassador role when I come out of this period of sabbatical or contemplation period. And this is the break that I will need in order to step into that role of ambassador. An ambassador embodies profound attributes that shape not only individual lives, but also influence the collective consciousness by skillfully utilizing the characteristics of all of the archetypes that are included in this deck. And so that was my realization that I came to by looking at the archetypes related to what this is asking me to do. The herd dynamic is the energies, remember again. And so, interestingly enough, the energy that came through for me was the predator energy. And the predator energy calls what doesn't benefit the whole, so that goes into the balancer archetype. Sensitive to energy drains and resource strains. And that is also taking things away from my life that may be draining my resources. And and also there's this resilience within the energy of this role as well. And during this reflection, I must remove things from my life that will not serve me going forward, projects, habits, even individuals that would hold me back from what is next. And then the other energy that feels like it's coming through is this connector energy, which is the holistic viewpoint of what's happening all around me, and crosses species and organizations. It seeks potential, activates potential, connects the species to the ecosystem, and it's connected to the universal picture, risk takers, and faith-based decisions. And so this is the energy that seems to be encompassing of what wants to happen. Looking, listening, and preparing. And each one of these energies also has a challenge. When we're too much into one energy, we might be avoiding another energy. And I go over that in depth in the other presentation that talks about the categories of the cards. All right, so the next piece is the alignment. And aligning, we use the duality cards and the hermetic principle cards. So this is what foundational concepts are attached to this topic. So we'll be looking at the dualities, the ends of the spectrums, and then the hermetic principles, which are the philosophical uh, ideas behind what this is asking me to do. So in the duality cards for my topic, the first one that I noticed that came up was lens and filter. And so the lens and the filter, a lens brings things into focus and a filter blocks out information actually. So those are two ends of a spectrum, or two dualities. And so this is asking me to examine my life events, and turn them into wisdom, to bring into focus, which is the lens, what is important, and filter out what is not relevant any longer. I guess that stops ruminating on things, right? And the second duality that is valid here is, for me, was creation and consumption. So I'm really used to creating, and that's really the comfort zone for me. And it's difficult for me to go into consumption. And so finding a balance between, an alignment between the two, consuming and creating, can bring me into a place of feeling content. I think it goes back to contentment then. So this other piece of alignment brings us to the Hermetic principles. Now looking through the Hermetic principle cards, the principle of rhythm is what stood out for me. And realizing that this is a natural cycle in my life, just as the seasons are cycles, I'm coming into a winter of reflection and have stored the energy I need to consume during this restful phase. And the main philosophy around the principle of rhythm is life is not a linear progression, but rather a series of cycles and patterns. And the other Hermetic principle that came up for me is the principle of mentalism. And this principle asserts that the universe is a mental creation and that all is one mind. It suggests that everything is connected and influenced by the cosmic mind, or the collective consciousness. And so this principle is relating to my topic, I think, because of the herd dynamic, the connector, and in connecting that in that way, understanding that I may be part of a greater collective, and what is my responsibility and what am I contributing to that collective. So in summary for me, The emotion is I needed to process guilt and allow myself to be proud of my accomplishments, to be peacefully content. The archetype theme, my life so far without, to see my life so far without condition, and to let go of perceived failures in order to step into the ambassador role. And so the herd dynamic energy, it takes a predatory energy to let go of things and intentional energy to connect to the bigger picture. And duality is looking at, I realized I needed to step out of creation to enjoy what I've earned so far and to allow myself to bring the next part of my life into focus. And in the Hermetic principles, that it's a time in my life that I need to take a look at and realize what I am contributing to the cosmic collective and what my responsibility is to that. So if I pull all of that information together, what is this asking me to do? The answer is to take responsibility for what I bring to the collective consciousness. That's all. Boy, that was like quite a process, and I think it reinforces the necessity to take a step back in order to realize that, take action. So to review my 3 fundamental questions: what wants to happen? Enjoying some time and ticking off a bucket list item, or maybe more than one. And who is this asking me to be? Peacefully content. And then what is this asking me to do? Take responsibility for what I bring to the collective consciousness. So that all of that information is distilled, all the information I've gathered, I've been able to distill down to these 3 statements, which, but in the meantime, it probably took me a few hours to distill everything down to these simple statements. And that's normal. It's normal for it to take quite a while. So now we move to the integrate card. So now we are here, card number 8 of the algorithm, the 3 fundamental questions. As you journal about this and begin to integrate these insights into your life, you will come to what I call a resolution of the topic. And this will lead then into integrating a commitment. This is a place where you can set goals, and then goals can also be seen as waypoints to a future that holds your potential. You don't know quite really what's out there until you start on your way. And then as part of your integration process, imagine the future, envision what it's going to look like, the steps it takes to create it. You hold the power to bring your dreams into existence. And don't get stuck on being perfect. This is one thing that often can stop this forward momentum, is waiting for everything to be perfect before you move on. And perfection is the food of self-limiting beliefs. Don't let it hold you back. Growth always comes with aches and pains, and growth can be messy, and that's okay. Well, there you have it, the 3 fundamental questions. Good luck, and please reach out if you have any questions.